Good afternoon. Maybe Joe Rogan is not a CIA asset. Maybe Joe Rogan is a Chinese intelligent asset, programmed telepathically or directly directed by the Anchenbu. And what if CIA's decades-long mind control project, their parapsychological, telepathic, mind-bending, mind control stuff, was real? Like in the movie Talladega Nights, when Cal Naughton Jr. said, "When you say psychosomatic, you mean like he could start fires with his mind?" Yes, Cal, that's exactly what I'm referring to. CIA had MK Ultra, which was Manchurian Candidate type stuff, studies augmented with LSD. But they also had the staring at goats and cloud popping stuff, and that whole Russell Targ and Harold Putoff stuff. So what if all this crap was real? What if it works? The fact that we know the names of CIA's programs and the people that were in it, whereas we don't even know the names of China's equivalent agency, as there's no record of them even having one, which is ludicrous, that I'm aware of. I'm sure there's a record somewhere. All we know about the Ministry of Security is that it's called the Anchenbu. So a rational assumption would be that China knows at least as much as what the American public knows. So the Anchenbu would have to know about all the CIA mind control, Stranger Things type programs, like the ones that allegedly happened over in Montauk, New York, which was, I believe, the inspiration for the popular television show Stranger Things that happened a couple years back. And if you haven't heard of that show, you should check it out. So if this remote control, parapsychology, Stranger Things, mind-bending stuff works, and China knows about it, one would assume that China would be trying to implement it. If China were implementing the character's name was 11 type mind-bending, who would their targets be? Domestically for them, political dissidents. Internationally for them, it would be us, the people of the West. Whether China would want to create political dissidents in the United States, in Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and the UK would depend on whether they are controlling our governments or our nations or not. Clearly, when Trump was in office, there were forces promoting political dissidents, Antifa, Black Lives Matter, etc. And as soon as Biden got into office, all that noise stopped, which should be a red flag. In Canada, Trudeau is so far gone that there are literally Chinese state police stations in Canadian shopping malls, in essence making Canada just a province of China. So the freedom protesters in Canada would be enemies of the Chinese authority in Canadian Parliament. So what would these communist Chinese state goons try to program into the minds of their enemy? Not just the pro-freedom, pro-individual rights types, but the entire population of the West, presumably anti-Western ideals, pro-Chinese, pro-collectivism ideals. Or over here, it would be like fight the police, defund the police, kill the police. We just have to look at video games like Grand Theft Auto, where there are secret places where you can hide and snipe people. All the games, the game's algorithm slowly removes all the civilians so that your targets are only police. Is this a coincidence? Possibly. If they could, would China manipulate the minds of our academics, media, and our government? Of course. Leaders would be the top priority, I would assume. Or perhaps those who are more receptive, and the mediums, or the mediums, the psychics, or whatever they are called. Perhaps just average Joes who don't even know that they are receptors of this type of signal, if it exists. Business leaders, political, social, etc. All the same targets as if they were in an alien invasion. If the aliens were here, they'd be choosing the same targets. There's no real difference between a Chinese parapsychological attack and the alien ones that uses telepathic mind controls, if they exist, as so many of the abductees in John Mack's books claim they are the victims of. In fact, most, if not all of these abductees claim aliens communicated with them in this fashion, and many were manipulated to extreme love towards these gruesome aliens, which I find the most terrifying aspect. But that part didn't seem to bother a lot of these experiencers. We can reason that if telepathic attack is possible, then alien attacks, both foreign, species-wise, and domestic, Chinese-wise, planet-wise, are an ongoing threat to our safety and perhaps even our sanity. We need to develop a defense against this dark art, this variant of manipulation by other parapsychological means, parapsychological means. If there are only a small percentage of the population who can do such telepathic attacks with great effect, then China, with their population of billions, would be the statistical pool to have the greatest chance of finding the strongest mind-bending soldiers or agents or whatever they may be designated as. In that event, we can assume China would most likely be the ones behind parapsychological attacks happening all around the world. Maybe aliens, maybe Chinese, maybe demons, maybe all the above, and more, or none. According to legend, the USA's program wasn't that large. There may be a small farm today of mind-bending CIA slaves, or not. But tete-a-tete, China would most likely have more if they devoted resources towards such a thing. Communists are ideologically buried into the realm of materialism, as in the philosophic monism, not the I need to buy shit mentality. And the monism of materialism believes that such a thing as parapsychology or anything beyond the tangible is not real. So there is a chance that due to their limited ideological position, the Chinese communists, would have pursued research in this area, but it's only 50-50. If it is real, and they tested it and proved it to themselves, then I would assume that they would not just send signals to the West, they would want to measure how effective different programs and campaigns are. You need feedback, like telepathically telling teenage girls in the West to go buy rose gold crap, and then measure any increase in the sales of rose gold crap. Given the Chinese position in the manufacturing market and their sales, they would have their thumbs on the pulse of sales of such things as arbitrary as this. They could measure demographics and sales or impact, study which segment of the population are more susceptible to such forms of manipulation in order to more effectively allocate the resources for more effective attacks in the future. It would be logical to target the younger population and just try to kill off the older population, like say with a virus that only kills old people, while not impacting the young, something like perhaps coronavirus. Of course, the whole woke bigotry and anti-science transsexual movement is something China supports abroad while adamantly defending against domestically on their own soil. If this parapsychological, telepathic, mind-bending attack stuff is real, then we would be under attack as I speak. We should be receiving signals right now from all parties who partake, from the CIA, from the Chinese Ministry of Security, Chengbu, from aliens if they exist, from demons if they exist, from anything that exists that knows about this form of communication that can enact it, from Bigfoot to pixies, if they exist, to unicorns, whatever the limit is, if it even exists. Perhaps Carl Jung's and Sting's synchronicities are a form of communication from a higher or different intelligence, perceptions with meaningful intent as opposed to just apophenia type 1. Now, if there is a force of attack or a force that wants to communicate with all forms of communication and attack, there are always counter forces. Signal to noise, as well as intentional jamming of the signal. So if this crap is real, we should also assume that there are forces that are trying to block our perception of it, to jam the signal, so to speak, to increase the noise to the point that the signal is lost to the ether. It is a reasonable assumption. But what those forces are or could be are too varied and speculative for even this episode, as I'm pretty far down the rabbit hole into the deep, boggy weeds already. But it would make sense that if this parapsychological telepathic mind-bending were real, that on the Earth, the Chinese state would be the largest army of this type of agent. And Joe Rogan, being the most popular podcaster and single source of influence in the West, that he would be the target of such a Chinese army. And since he was not mentioned or has not mentioned that he is under attack, I would assume that he's either unwittingly or willingly complying. Where's the endo? Outro. Where's outro? Outro.